Hey, Rick. Ladies and gentlemen, would you all please stand for the zoning subcommittee meeting of July 9th? Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I believe I'm just waiting for one more person for a quorum. However, I will conduct the meeting as such. And considering we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 councilors. Can the proponents for 18-223 Bellevue Revere LLC, 72 Squire Road, come to the podium? Thank you.
Good afternoon, councilors. Corey Rhodes with D'Ambrosio Brown, LLP, 14 Proctor Avenue in Revere. I represent Bellevue Revere LLC, and this is a special permit for townhouse use. This is on a lot at the back of Bellevue Ave, as we stated at the hearing the other night. This is actually to reduce a project that was previously approved in May of 2017. We're reducing it from 8 townhouse units to 4 townhouse units. We're still meeting all the dimensional requirements and all the parking requirements, and just looking for that special permit of use. It's something that my client worked closely with Councilor Powers on to bring a smaller scope project to this neighborhood and have less of an impact. And we're happy to answer any questions you have and ask for your support.
Thank you. I'd like to open it up to the councilors that are here, and just in recognition, I'd like to start from my left to my right, considering we normally go right to left. We have Ward 5 Councilor John Powers, as well as Ward 6 Councilor Charlie Patch. To my right, I have Councilor Ira Novoselsky from Ward 2, Joanne McKenna from Ward 1, and Patrick Keefe from Ward 4. I'm going to open it up to the Ward Councilor first, if he has any questions regarding this project, considering he's done such a great amount of work there.
I just have one question, and it's a question that's been raised by the residents down there. As you know, the next street down is Ford Street, and I think the main concern with the people down there was that the Bellevue or Ford Street not be made contiguous to each other, you know, so no turnaround there.
Correct.
From Ford Street to Bellevue. Each street remains a separate entity, and if you can assure me of that.
Yes, there'll be no extension of Bellevue Ave, won't be connecting to any other streets.
Okay.
It'll just be using what's existing right there.
That was my concern. Yeah. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Anybody else on the council? With that said, Corey, we're going to wait for the conditions from Frank Stringy, and then we'll report it out of committee and to the full council at our next meeting.
Okay, that sounds good. Thank you very much.
Next would be Mr. Leon Zespik, I hope I pronounced your name correctly, 18-224, regarding 542 Beach Street, in which they want to change a non-conforming 6-unit residential unit into a 8-unit residential building.
Hello, Attorney Laureen Scatino here representing Mr. Leon Gezpens on this matter. As suggested, we are looking to change a 6-unit to an 8-unit building. The 8 units have been pre-existing, and my client has been paying taxes on this, on these 8 units since he's purchased the property back in 2014. From what we can see and looking at the history of the property, it appears that this has been 8 units for quite some time now. That we do currently have them vacant as they are not complying, so there's no one renting them now. I know one of the issues is parking. My client also owns 536 Beach Street, and he's able to put those cars, he can put any extra unit cars over there as well. So with that, I can take any questions.
For a moment, I'd just like to also recognize Councilor at-large Zambudo, who's present for quorum. Ma'am, if I may just ask one question, sure. And then I'm going to pass it off to the Ward Councilor. And it's Attorney Scatino?
Scatino.
Scatino, like as in the former rep? This is Catino from Medford.
No, SCH, Scatino.
Okay, very well,
Yeah.
thank you kindly. You said 536 Beach Street, correct?
Yes.
That would also be a white facade building, if I'm not mistaken, that's to the left side of it? I mean, if I'm looking at it correctly from,
It's grayish, but yeah.
okay. So where are those cars going to park?
So they have, we don't,
Because they don't have parking, I mean, I know the area intrinsically, so you're taking from one part to the other, a total of 14 units.
so we
How do you
don't-
park?
Most of the tenants, we've actually taken kind of a role on this, and most of our tenants do not have vehicles, and we are willing to work within our leases to basically say, you know, we're not guaranteeing you any parking, we don't charge for our parking.
But what do
so
you do when one tenant leaves and someone comes in, you've got 3 kids, both of them have cars?
we can
Because
put-
my ex-wife went from having 1 car in the driveway to now she has 3 cars in the driveway once my daughter turned 17 and my sister moved in.
Fully understood, you know.
Can't predict.
We can't predict, obviously, we can't tell the future. We can put some things in our leases, but that doesn't mean that they're necessarily enforceable. But we are happy to, you know, put restrictions in our leases based on the number of cars and things like that.
That said, I'd like to offer this to Councilor Novoselsky.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, you know, I've had discussions with the counselor over the last, actually 6 months, when she had the prior request. And, you know, this building, you know, and I know it's not the current owner's problem, issue at this time, but before this, okay, and prior owners, the landlords back then they definitely made illegal apartments in the basement. And we had many times, if we go into the records, we'll see in the building department that there were orders issued to remove kitchens and bathrooms and on a regular basis down there. You know, despite, you know, the parking issue, and technically, when you look at the parking in the city ordinances, there's no parking behind the building. So technically, in that building, parking is illegal anyway. So now you're adding more cars to make them illegal. But, you know, it's a very dense neighborhood. And I have to look at what's going on in the neighborhood. And, you know, to help you make more money and more housing stock, I can't see that happening on Beach Street at the corner of Thornton Street. Parking is no parking on one side of the street. And the other side of the street has all the side streets, so the amount of spaces with the driveways is minimal. And now, you know, I told the counselor, I've been on the fence with this thing since she came in again, because I told her to come in again. And until such time, what's happening now is more people are going into site plan review in my neighborhood, asking for more units in an existing building. I have a 12-unit building on Shirley Ave, and someone wants to come in with 4 more units on it. And if we start a precedent of approving additional units, this is going to expand, and every 6 family is going to be 8 family, and the 12 families are going to be 16 families, all over the place. I'm trying to get a thinner and not as dense neighborhood. That's why way back when we made all of Shirley Ave Hills RB instead of RC. And so, you know, unfortunately, I'm against this. And I know some of the councilors last time expressed, you know, to help them out, but, you know, it's not somebody that lives in the building. You know, he's, you know, and not that it's not a negative, but he's an absentee landlord. And I know he tries to take care of the buildings. But I just can't see it happening now because it's just escalating more and more. So that's my thoughts on it right now. Thank you, Council.
Does anybody else have any commentary? Council Powers?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, I certainly recognize the sentiments of yourself, Mr. Chairman, and the Ward Council with regard to parking. You know, you have 2 buildings in an area that's very heavily congested to begin with, and now you're looking to add 2 more units, and also you're creating a need for 4 more parking spaces in the area, and I just think that's the wrong way to go. If they don't have the parking, they don't have the parking. And I'm going to support the ward council on this. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
If I could, this is slightly different, only because this is a pre-existing condition not caused by my client. My client has been paying taxes. He has had certificates from the fire department showing 8 units. Everything goes back quite some time now. So there has always, albeit not legally, there has always been 8 units here. So when you say adding, while I understand, the issue, it's been pre-existing there the whole time. And to punish my client for this matter, we are willing to work with the community as much as we can. My client does have a 24-hour property management service there so that, any issues can be addressed immediately.
Councilor Zambudo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm one that doesn't like to paint with a broad brush, and I look at each proposal on its merit. I saw this when it first came up. I tried to work with the attorney, and I kind of thought the ward council was going to be on board, but he's obviously not tonight. I have no control over that. However, I think they've worked in good faith to try to make this work, an existing condition, and I think the mitigation with the parking at the other building the person owns, I think it's workable. Now, I can certainly understand making the case that, there's not enough parking and all this, and the attorney says that they certainly put something in the lease, and they already have most of their units don't have parking, don't have cars, and we don't know that's going to continue forever. However, there are ways, and we have approved other projects where people put in the lease that there's no car, and in the same neighborhood. But we're not going to get specific about this. All I can say is that I support this, and I like to see people coming to try to make things legal that have been illegal, especially when they didn't own it in the first place, and they come here in good faith to try to turn it legal. So I support this, and that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Patch, Councilor McKenna.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Since the ward council said that are the 2 apartments in the basement, are they rented now?
No, they're not. We actually found out that they were technically not fully compliant when we got a letter from the city of Revere. As a matter of fact, it's the only thing inside the building jacket. We fully complied with Revere to bring everything up to code. We fully intend to bring everything up to meet the building code once these, if these units are ever able to become legalized units. But as soon as we found that out, they have not been occupied. So that's been about 6 months now since we started this process.
Okay, that's, well, I'm going to have to agree with the ward councilor, being a ward councilor. And I just wanted to make sure nobody was getting thrown out. If they're vacant now, I just can't picture that many cars, and just too much for the neighborhood. So I won't be voting for it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Councilor McKenna.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I must have missed it, but how many parking spaces do you have right now in that unit?
So 542 Beach Street does not have parking that goes with it. There is a little driveway space to the right that they sometimes do put some parking in it. And then we have parking availability over at 536 Beach as well.
So what I'm saying is, so you're asking for 542 Beach Street?
542, yes.
Okay, so right now you don't have any parking?
The building has always been like that with no parking.
Okay, and then for 536, how many parking spaces do you have?
Give me one.
Thank you.
We could probably fit about 4 back there.
4, and how many units do you have in 536?
There's 6 units.
There's 6 units, okay. So if you have 6 units, what usually happens is when you have 1 unit, it's 2 cars. So that's 12 cars. I understand that not everybody has a car, but then you're talking about 8 units on 542, that's 16 parking spaces. So you're talking about 28 parking spaces. That's a lot of parking spaces. And I understand that not everybody has a car, but there are people in Revere that live in a house that have 5 cars.
And I fully acknowledge that. The reason that a lot of my clients' tenants actually choose to live on Beach Street is because it's proximity to the public transportation, and they are the type of tenants that actually utilize public transportation. Not all of them necessarily have the means to have a vehicle and things of that nature. So while I fully understand that Revere and any other city has parking issues, there has been an influx of residents that they don't rely on their vehicles constantly. There's Uber, there's public transportation, and Beach Street has ample access right to public transportation.
I agree with you, because I see it all the time, but for me, I just can't go for this. I just can't, when you're asking for 8 units at 542 and you don't have any parking spaces.
Understood.
So, I'm sorry.
Any other councilors?
Mr. Chairman, just if I may, and not to make a super big McGiller out of this thing, when people come up here and say, well, they're paying taxes for 8 units, we have to realize that when Patriot Property goes out to inspect, it's what you see is what you get. If they see 8 units, that's what they're going to tax you on. But when you go down to the building department, they only see it as 6 units because there were never any permits pulled to make those other 2 units legal, and also because of the zoning in the city.
May I interrupt you?
Sure, Council.
So, first and foremost, it doesn't matter if it's 8 or if it's 6 legally, because we're talking about a commercial venue. You're still going to be taxed based upon the total square footage of use. More importantly, occupancy is what the letter of the law is. It's not what the Patriot Property states as far as the...
Fully understood.
Right. My biggest concern is looking at the property as it sits. It's impossible to have 2 egresses there. It's impossible to, unless you're going to lower the grade within the area in order to facilitate windows that can allow people to egress on the sides. Looking at the actual plan itself, is the building sprinkled?
I don't believe the building is sprinkled, but as I mentioned...
It would have to be sprinkled once it reaches a certain...
Whatever the building code requires, we would absolutely comply with. And obviously, if it's not something that we can comply with within the building code, then it's not something we'd be able to go forward with anyway.
And
But the first step would be any approvals through this body.
my biggest concern is it seems like a safety hazard. Looking at that, actually, I believe there's been a fire along one of the properties across the street, similar design building, and that's another concern. If you look at the property on Kimball Ave that's abutted, you have very small amounts of setbacks in the rear on both sides. So God forbid that there was ever a fire, putting cars back there and then having additional people there, to me it seems very problematic.
We have no intentions of putting cars behind 542 Beach.
Again,
yeah.
you can't control that because...
They can't fit. There's a bump out on the side of the building, so they can't fit.
On the right-hand side where you have the no parking on the ground, I've seen cars parked there in the past. I live right down the street from it. So whether you say it or not, I know what I've seen.
On the right-hand side, they do. They can't fit
Right.
behind
So
to get
then
in
we
the back
agree
of
on
the
the
building.
right-hand
So we have
side.
no intent, because to be truthful, we would have probably proposed some parking in the back if they could actually fit. As I mentioned, we have full intentions of complying with whatever the building code is to make sure that all the life safety measures are in place for this building. We would never jeopardize anyone.
In this instance, based upon all the issues, I have great concern. Council McKenna?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would just like to say thank you for coming up here and doing it the right way, because we have so many illegal, like my counselor on my left said. We have so many people that live in the city that are running rooming houses. So thank you for doing that. I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
I'm of the opinion that I'd like to take this up now. Unfortunately, I can't support this effort, although I would like to. For different reasons, I just can't. That said, I'd like to take a vote within the committee, and then thereafter, proponents, those in favor of the application, I'd like to, Councilor Zambudo, Councilor Patch,
No.
and myself is no. I'm going to open it up to the rest of the councilors here. Councilor Powers,
No.
Councilor Novoselsky,
No.
Councilor McKenna,
No.
Councilor Keith.
No.
Both the committee members and council members vote no. Actually, if we can just record into the record, the reasons why it was denied was due to density, parking, safety, lack of egress, and nonconformity. Thank you. Next on the agenda of 18225 is the RB Hotel LLC. Proponents, please come to the podium. Thank you. And just
Thank you.
name and address, please.
Christine Thomas, 284 Tyler Farm Road, West Newbury, Vermont, with offices at 227 Marginal Street in Chelsea, representing RBP Hotel LLC. I'm a member of that LLC, part of the ownership. And I appreciated being able to appear before you on June 25th to discuss an improvement to modify our permits from a 132-room extended stay hotel to a dual-branded 72-room extended stay hotel and 80-room standard guest room property. That we discussed that it would mean no changes to the building dimensionally or height-wise and or FAR, and that we were only strove for 0.5 parking with the original project, and were easily able to accommodate meeting the current FAR of 0.5 by simply reorganizing the parking lot and making it work more efficiently. We also discussed low car counts associated with lodging that's this close to public transportation and shuttle service from the airport, and that the project will mean the difference between the first project and the second project is between 10 and 15% to the rooms and meals tax and also to the property tax. And I appreciate being here this evening to answer your questions and would appreciate your support of this project.
Thank you for your attendance, more importantly, explaining this to the public. I'm grateful for your presence, and more importantly, increasing the number of rooms within your hotel from 132 to, I believe it's 152 now,
Yes, 152.
which is a great benefit to this community. That said, I'd like to also just recognize Councilor Morabito, who is in attendance. Gentlemen, and ladies, I'm going to, and Council President Janino, I'm going to open up any questions to the councilors to my left side. Councilor Zambudo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think I've been pretty vocal about my support for this project. I think that this is a win-win for the city to convert, to end up with, I believe it's 80 regular hotel rooms and only 72 extended stay, means that you need half the parking you needed before that was approved. The revenue stream is tremendously increased. I think it's not of any real value for me to go on about the quality of the product that these people build. I think most of us that do our homework have investigated that. It's a first-class company that does first-class work, and all you have to do is go visit their hotels to see that. You know, I hate to use cliches, but this falls in the category of a no-brainer. I can't see anybody not supporting this project. It's taken a project that was, in my eyes, a good project and made it a much better project, much better for everybody and for the city. And so I support it wholeheartedly, and I encourage my colleagues to do the same. Thank you.
Any other councils to my left? Councilor Powers, and then Councilor Patch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. When I first heard about this, I took it upon myself to go out and meet with the proponent at a facility in Chelsea. And I was really amazed. It was certainly more than I expected in that hotel. Impeccable, clean, great design. I visited the rooms, great. And then I did the math, and if we were to get if the proponent was to get $200 a night per room, okay, that would give the city of Revere an extra $88,000 a year in revenue from the 6% room excise tax, and probably even more monies from the meals tax, beverage tax, etc. But the main thing is that it's at $88,000. I think it's the hotel is a better product now that it's been changed somewhat, and we've eliminated a lot of the extended stay, and that's, I think, was a concern to many residents that I have talked with in the city. So I certainly will be supporting this 100%. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Councilor Patch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, in my eyes, I don't feel that this was a very good project for the city of Revere.
All right, that's enough talking.
I'm talking the original proposal of that when it first came up, and I voted against it. I was one of the three to vote against it. Unfortunately, we didn't have 4 votes, so we lost. But from that day, the majority of people I talked to seem to agree with me that it's much too large for that piece of land. But to go on, you came to us to change the project and make it 2 hotels. And as you remember, I was against that one because you were going to increase the size of the building of the hotel. And I respect you for coming back, and you're going to keep it the same size as it was, and reduce the parking. And I'm strongly for hotels, and the money that the city will make, it's just a plus. So I'm going to vote yes for the first time for Shaw's project. Thank you.
Councilor Novoselsky.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, as everybody knows, this is in my ward, and I have been in support of this whole project right from day one. You know, even when it was part of the residential units, and now that they've separated and, you know, they're moving on. I can't say any more than what my colleagues have said to my left, but I am very supportive. They've agreed to make some adjustments to the fencing along North Shore Road. You know, the neighbors wanted it. They didn't want us to have a space for people to open their doors and throw trash out, and the trash go down into the creek. And they've agreed to put a fence on that to stop that. And, you know, hopefully that you folks will be able to keep that side of the creek clean, you know, even while during the construction is going on, to take out all the heavy debris and, make sure that the water flows as much as it can while it's down there. So, again, I'm so glad you came back, and 3 times is a charm, and I think we want to move on and get something good for our neighborhood. So, thank you, and I will be supporting this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor Morbido.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think looking at this project from the beginning and now seeing it come to fruition and seeing it in front of us tonight, I echo the same points my colleagues to my left have just mentioned. It helps us financially as a city because there's less extended stay units, but there's more, it increases the amount of hotel units, which means we get a fee for each unit. So that's great. And also in this terms of when you're looking at parking, that was cut. And then another thing, what some of my colleagues didn't say, on the residential aspect of this, I know it's a little off topic, but this is an area where the subway is right next door, so there will be a lot of commuters. Not necessarily everyone who stays at the hotel or lives in that at the residential complex will have a car. A lot of people will commute to and from via subway. So, yeah, I'm a proponent of this project, so you will have my vote tonight.
Thank you.
Councilor McKenna.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chris, I was against this from the beginning. I thought it was too big for the area. I heard, I'm not in the ward, but I abut the project, and I heard from my constituents, and they didn't want it. But after sitting with you and talking with you, and you coming back to the table, I have to thank you for just, listening to us and complying to what we were recommending. So I'm definitely for this tonight. This will be my first yes, and I'm definitely for it. And thank you for coming back and being persistent and making changes. Thank you.
Councilor Keefe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I obviously agree with all these comments. I did have a few questions in regards to if this hotel does become approved, the new plan, how soon would you be sticking shovels in the ground? There's some level of excitement with the residential side being built, but we'd like to see that whole project come to fruition, obviously sooner than later. And then just a statement that hotels in the city of Revere are great for business. Restaurant owners are excited. I talked to some restaurant owners on Broadway, obviously. There's definitely business owners on Squire Road and closer to the beach. They need this. They need this type of transient guests coming in our city and eating the restaurants and going to the businesses in the area. So there's, like Councilor Zambudo said, it's a no-brainer. But on the project beginning.
There are minor modifications to the plan that we need to make in order to submit full building permits, but it is minor, that we were pretty far along in the drawings, and there's no significant change to the ground floor plans, the structural, but there is some changes to the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. So our team is prepared. You may remember that we're a fully integrated company that has in-house architectural and engineering team members that we can put on this right away. We are not in a need to queue up in subcontractor queues for that aspect of the project. And this fall.
Thank you.
Councilor Rizzo.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Well, I was relieved to hear that the footprint was not going to be expanded, and I am glad that at that time, as an unelected member of city government, when I spoke in opposition of the project as a whole because of neighborhood sentiment in the Beachmont area and down behind the project, And I had talked about the extended stay not being optimal as far as I was concerned for hotels here in the city. It's good that you're taking some extended stay rooms and now putting them over into a more mainstream, what we would think of, what an average person would think of as a mainstream hotel room. And I'm glad that's happening, and if that's adding to the number of rooms but not expanding the footprint, I'm okay with that. I also know that typically, especially this close to Logan, we're not going to have any real parking issues, but as I said at the last meeting, I would like a condition of this that there would be no park and fly down there, because parking is going to be tight. I'm looking at that big, huge apartment building over to the right, and I just, you know, like in so many other parts of the city that I represent, people have issues with parking all the time, and I don't want any overflow parking. I'm not even sure where that overflow parking might go, but, you know, water seeks its own level, and I really don't want to wind up into a situation where there's overflow parking that's negatively impacting residents that may abut that property down there. So I would like, you know, an amendment that just says no park and fly down there, as far use as a park and fly, if that is agreeable to members of the council. But other than that, it will have my support. Thank you.
I guess what I would like to say to that is that our experience within the airport market is that we don't run our own park and fly business. We work with professional park and fly companies. Most notably, we work with Interpark, which is before you get to the city of Revere. And so it's not that, because it's not our business model to do that, I don't chafe at it. I guess I would want to see how that amendment would be
Sure.
written.
I would gladly word it in the fashion that no physical vehicle could be parked for greater than 24 hours as part of a incorporative park and fly LLC or corporation at your facility. So having Interpark come there and pick it up is different than having them park it and leaving it there. Councilor Zambudo.
If I might, I agree that we shouldn't have a park and fly accessory use at the building.
Correct.
However, I would stop short of that by not limiting them to have their regular customers leave their car and go on a trip if they're staying a couple of days. That's different than having an accessory use park and fly. I'd be willing to put an amendment that they don't have an accessory use park and fly, but I would not be in favor of restricting a hotel for not having someone that stays and leaves their car for a couple of days and goes away. That I wouldn't be in favor of.
So I want to, for someone who actually travels extensively, I want to kind of feel through what you're saying. So I arrive in Boston and I go to the hotel. I then rent a car at Avis, where have you, and I leave my car there and I have to go and fly to Martha's Vineyard for 3 days. Am I still renting at the hotel, or am I leaving my vehicle at the hotel? Which one is it?
Now, you're not getting the point I'm making.
No,
The point I'm
I
making is
am.
there are hotels that have an express use of park and fly. I'm in favor of not having that. What I'm not in favor of is restricting the hotel beyond normal use, people leaving their car for a couple of days.
So my issue is having people parking their vehicles there as a secondary use.
Yeah, I'm saying, I'm against the secondary
Okay,
use
so we're on the same-
park and fly. We're on the same page.
Mr. Chair, no, if I may, because I had, you know, I
Counselor.
thought I had the floor at that point. So my recommendation of a park and fly is just what it is. It's a park and fly. I mean, if you're not staying at the hotel and you're going to use that parking lot to go travel, and you're going to pay a fee to park your vehicle there, and you're not a guest of the hotel, that to me is a park and fly.
Exactly, I'm in
right.
favor of the same thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now if they're renting a room and the room is attached to the vehicle where you get a little sticker that puts on your car and I'm a guest of the hotel, but not as a park and fly, oh, well, then I'm misunderstanding you as well then. Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Are you of the same mindset, ma'am?
I'd have to
I-
see
I
the
dis-
way
I
this is
think-
written.
I think you're not, actually. I think you want the accessory use so that if someone decides to park their car there, they go to the airport, that's what you're most comfortable with. Would that be correct?
Just like I've heard here, it depends on the circumstance. Do you know what I mean? It's that we don't advertise that there's a park and fly package, stay with us and you can park your car while you go to Florida for a week. But there are circumstances where it's a guest who is there for a couple of days, they are staying the week, but they're gone for a day.
They
and
want to
then-
go to
do you
Lee
know
or
what I
they
mean?
want to go to wherever?
We can't be running a parking lot that is as a profit center, running a parking business. That's not what we do. It would be moved to an auxiliary lot where they're parking their car for the 2 weeks while they go on their Florida vacation, and we'll make that as painless for them as possible.
So I think that we're pretty much all in agreement. I think the semantics are different. That's pretty much it. With that said, Councilor Rizzo, and what I'd like to do in all honesty is I would like to entertain that, Ms. Thomas, if you don't mind. And I'm going to refer to City Solicitor to basically come to an agreement as to how we word it within the confines of this special permit, so to speak, and go from there. I mean, would you be okay with that? So we'll approve everything tonight?
It's pretty clear cut that we could put in there that we're not allowing a secondary use or an accessory use as a park and fly business. And that does it.
I totally agree. I
And
just...
I don't think we need a solicitor for that.
That's fine. I still would like him, after this being written, to approve it, that's all. It's pretty
But
simple.
I mean, I think it's pretty ccer cut that we could put that amendment into the special permit.
That's fine.
It's clean.
No, I agree with you. I
Yeah,
just-
okay, thank you.
Just my, always want to have a lawyer look at something. So that said, I'd like to take a vote on the conditions put forward in order to permit 152 rooms as written, with any conditions, as well as the conditions set forth by Councilor Rizzo and Zambudo. Madam Clerk?
Roll call of the members of the zoning subcommittee. Councilor Morabito?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Patch?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Rizzo? Yes. Councilor Zambudo?
Yes,
Yes. And Councilor Rotundo?
Yes.
Yes, the special permit will be forwarded to the full city council for approval.
All set.
Thank you, and thank everyone for being here.
Thank you for your patience.
Good luck.
Next item I'd like to take up is a motion by Councilor Keefe that the mayor requests the city solicitor to revise Boston short-term rental ordinance and have it applicable to the city of Revere. Do we have any updates on that, Councilor?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have not gotten any word officially from the city solicitor. I'm not sure if this needs to be sent down to him or up to him, wherever he is. So this
Madam Clerk, can we send from the committee, and I'll send an email accordingly, but through you, requesting an update as to where the mayor is regarding the short-term rental ordinance and the solicitor? And with that, I'm going to conclude this meeting unless you have any other input.
No, that's really the biggest amount of input. In essence, I've read through the ordinance or the wording that the city of Boston has utilized. I thought that it'd be pretty fitting with some minor tweaks to somewhat regurgitate for the city of Revere. We're in a similar region. And I think that the city solicitor, obviously, we could take a look at that and see if we can draft something up for Revere. Simple as that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Novoselsky?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, this is the second motion that's come up regarding the Airbnbs within the last, I'd say, month and a half. Councilor Guanasso first put one in that we sent it to the mayor. I don't know what happened with the mayor and where that motion went. I didn't go into EQ or whatever the minute track, thank you. I don't know where it went from there, and then Councilor Keefe put it in again once Boston passed theirs. So, and I think it's appropriate that we combine the two, and hopefully that the mayor put this forth to the mayor, pass this motion, get it on the books, that the councilor is going ahead with it, get it to the city solicitor, and have them do the work on it. It's basically, I know there's some things in the Boston package that may not fit us, and some things that we may want to add to it. But I think if we get a base boilerplate from the city solicitor through the mayor's office, we have something to work with and get this thing rolling. Because all we're doing now is playing footsie with it. I think we have to get some meat to it, and put it to work, and start protecting our city. Thank you.
Anybody else? With that said, I'd like to just inform you all of something that I am hoping to present to the council, and it's relative to the project down at Suffolk Downs. I'm looking to implement a Revere Employment Commission. One of the things that they do in Boston is that they have a commission that ensures employment on major projects. In fact, they've got an ordinance that is different than the one that we had for the schools. But this is one that mandates a certain percentage, and it dictates very specifically. It was enacted, I believe, in 1985 and subsequently amended thereafter. In fact, I believe the last time it was amended was 2 years ago by Martin Walsh's office. With that said, I'm going to present it to you guys within the coming weeks, and hopefully we can get something done so that we can protect the people that work in our city. Correct.
Mr. Chairman, are you proposing this goes to a public hearing, or what?
That will be later on. I just
Okay.
wanted to make you informed of it accordingly.
Thank you.
With that said, I believe there's nothing before the council, yeah. There's nothing else other than the Airbnb recommendation, and Madam Clerk?
Roll call for the motion that the mayor request the city solicitor to revise Boston's short-term rental ordinance to be applicable to the city of Revere. Councilor Morbido?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Patch?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Rizzo? Yes. Councilor Zambudo?
Yes.
Yes. And Chairman Rotundo?
Yes.
Yes, the motion will be forwarded to the full city council.
With that said, I'll be taking nothing forward from the committee at this point, and we'll be adjourned. Thank you.